Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, March 18th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm still getting used to it being the afternoons, AJ. You know, it's the third one in the afternoon, so forgive me for that, guys. I said good morning on Monday as well, and Cole was like, dude, you said good morning. It's an afternoon show now. Yeah, so afternoon, guys. It's 4 p.m. Eastern time here in Toronto. I think AJ's down there in Chicago, so you're, I believe, an hour behind me, if I'm not mistaken. AJ, Central Time, if I'm not mistaken. So we're right around the same time. And we got a great card this weekend, guys. UFC Vegas 22. I know AJ's got some bets for the card. I'm still working on mine. They'll be giving out tomorrow on the Elite Fantasy Podcast, Elite Betting Podcast. But I know you do have a few spots you want to talk about, and we'll get to those. But, you know, the one fight that did change since I did the podcast on Tuesday with Marcel, AJ, was the addition of a heavyweight bout between Harry Hunsucker and Tai Tuivasa. It's a short notice fight. The original fight was supposed to be Don'Tale Mayes and Tai Tuivasa. Before we get into the new fight, what were you thinking of that first fight, man? Because I got to be honest, I was kind of tempted to take Don'Tale Mayes at plus 175. He had a significant reach advantage in the fight. I'm not too high on Tai Tuivasa, but this is a different fight. But what were your thoughts on the first matchup?
I was eyeing an underdog shot as well. I wasn't going to end up doing it, but it was definitely a dog or pass matchup for me. It is always intriguing, to your point, to get an underdog with a reach advantage of 6 inches, which Mace had. We were on Phillips against Yadong. There was reach advantage there. It's always intriguing when you get those reach advantages in there. And we know Tuivasa's definitely got holes in his game, as we'll get into. So it was definitely an intriguing spot, but new matchup. So I'm sure we'll get into that. Yeah,
I'm almost glad it didn't happen, because honestly, I was like really scratching my head. Now, when Marcel was so sure Tuivasa was going to win, he was like, "Dude, you're crazy. He's going to knock him out." And I was like, "I don't know, man. Like, I don't trust this guy at all." Then again, how do you trust Don'Tale Mayes? Anyways, the fight's off. So now the new fight is Harry Hunsucker comes in. I just want to get Kevin's question, and we'll talk about this fight. He says, "Good afternoon, guys." Hey, Kevin, one of my favorite guys here. He says, it's a random question to start, but he says, "What is your favorite technique in MMA?" His is the jab. I love the jab. Very effective, underutilized. I agree with that. Man, I got to go with the low kick, though. It's still my favorite. It's still my favorite, man. I love the calf kicks, love the low kicks, AJ. And I'm not really one of these people that jumped on the bandwagon now. Like, I remember seeing these years ago. When Jim Miller fought Dustin Poirier, he utilized the low kick very well in that fight. That was like 5 years ago. So I remember, like, I used to train then. I remember seeing that fight. I went to the gym the next day, and I was going to that calf right. Well, I mean, it's a heavy bag, but I was going for the bottom of the heavy bag. So that's got to be one of my favorite techniques. But what about you, AJ?
I like the oblique kick for a few different reasons. It's a good like range measurement technique. It's also like effective. And then when I see a fighter use the oblique kick, it tells me that they've just got a lot of variety and layers to their striking. So it implies to me that like this is a developed striker. You know, John Jones used it. Lorenz Larkin used it. I mean, when you got a fighter that goes out and uses it consistently, it's definitely a catch. It catches my eye whenever I see a fighter roll that out there. So I would say that.
Yeah, that's a great one too. John Jones uses that obviously really well. Definitely some ethical issues, I think, with that technique, AJ. Like, some fighters do not want to use it against their opponents because they believe that it could seriously injure them. Having said that, if I'm a fighter, I would use any technique I can use. If you can legally use that technique, I would use it, you know. So, and you can't do things like kneeing someone in the head in the ground, but you can apparently do that. So that's definitely a good one. Let's get into this fight, though. I want to break down the fight with you, AJ. So let's talk about Tuivasa first here. Let me pull up UFC stats. We'll go through that a little bit. I want to do a little bit of tape study with you guys. I'll show you kind of like the way I get into these fights. I can't show Tuivasa's fights because they're copyrighted under UFC Fight Pass. It'll just block this video, so I can't do that. But I will show you guys Hunsucker's fights from the regional scene. I'm just pulling up the stats for this fight. Tai Tuivasa, Harry Hunsucker. And again, you know, physical stats, it's almost like a secondary thing for me, AJ. It's not really the most necessary thing, right? The most important thing is the style matchup, like you always talk about. I agree with you. But the stats are definitely important. They like to help back, for me, they like to help back my argument up and stuff like that. So, you know, looking at this fight, again, the Don'Tale Mayes had a 6-inch reach advantage, and he was, you know, kind of the same weight and stuff too. Tuivasa is, he's going to be the heavier guy in this matchup, AJ. Hunsucker's not a big heavyweight, I would say. He's like more of a medium-sized heavyweight. You see the reach is dissimilar here. It says Tuivasa is a southpaw as well, 4 years younger. That is another advantage as well, guys. Again, you know, Hunsucker, the rest of these stats you can't even look at. You cannot look at for Hunsucker anyways because he doesn't have a sample size. He has one fight. That's called a small sample size. You wouldn't use that in other sports. We're not going to use it in MMA. Tuivasa, however, does have a big sample size, AJ, of about 7 fights now. So you can use his stats, and you see right away, I mean, the strikes landed 4.2. It's a nice stat there for him. The defense, 50%, so it's not terrible either. the biggest problem here is the wrestling, right? For him, he's never attempted a takedown, or he's never succeeded in getting one, and he's only stopping 46% of them. So in the Mays fight, I thought Mays may be able to pin him against the cage and take him to the ground, kind of like Spivak did, as we saw in that fight, where I believe he was a favorite in that fight and he lost. And I remember picking Spivak there because I was fading Tai. This fight's probably a little bit different. I'm not so sure how effective Hunsucker is as a wrestler. I have watched his fights. We'll show them in a second here. AJ, it's just like to me, there's a very different. There's a big difference between fighting guys in the regional scene, Kentucky, and fighting guys in the UFC. And what's your initial thoughts on this fight before we get into the tape on Hunsucker? But what do you think as far as the stats and everything's concerned here?
Yeah, Tuivasa is always, well, to your point about stats in general, I like them because they help paint me a picture on the fight film. Like you said, the stylistic matchup is more important, and we could get that from the fight film, but the stats help paint that picture. So it's like secondary evidence, if you will. Yeah. And as pertains to Tuivasa, yeah, he's got like good volume, at least on paper, but he's still like a very flawed fighter, I'd say. We've seen his cardio fail him, his defensive grappling. He's not the most technical fighter. He kind of relies on like his power and athleticism, but he's a guy where like I wouldn't put a ton of emphasis on his stats because still to me, he's a guy that's kind of knockout or bust.
Yep.
Like when he has you hurt, he'll like aggressively pursue you. But when we actually watch him in striking exchanges, he's not like this high volume pace machine, like some of these other guys on this card, like Kevin Holland, for instance. He doesn't throw as much volume as Kevin Holland in open space. So I like the most compelling stats in this fight is the weight there. We see that Tuivasa is going to be the bigger fighter. And like, I do agree with you, Hunsucker, he could probably fight at light heavyweight. Yeah. He did not look that big against Vanderera, who's like a normal size heavyweight, I'd say. So that's going to be like Tai's advantages, but there's nothing stylistically that tells me like Tai really blows him out of the water. It's just more so like, oh, he's more prepared. He's been in the UFC more. He's going to be bigger than him. It's not like this overwhelmingly stylistic, compelling advantages in his favor. So, yeah.
I agree with that. Let's get Kevin's comment. He says, does Hunsucker know what wrestling is? By the way, the Hunsucker name, such a great name, eh? Harry Hunsucker. I love it. He says, I feel like even a passing knowledge of the sport would give him a path to victory against Tai. He actually is not terrible at his wrestling. I don't know if you've if you did your tape study on him yet, Harry, or on AJ, but Harry's not too bad with his single leg. He can get it against these low level guys, but again, Tuivasa's a much high level fighter, guys. Like, yes, he was taken down by Spivak 6 times in that fight, right, and then 2 times by Blagori, but that's it. Generally these fights stay in the feet, and he's pretty effective with it. And again, Hunsucker had that one fight contender series against Vanderera, got finished, but it was on short notice. This is also on short notice though. But let's watch his last fight, okay, AJ? I don't know if you've probably seen it already, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's watch this last fight. If you guys haven't seen it, it's this guy, Corey Moon. And, I mean, look at the guy's fighting. Like, this is not a UFC caliber fighter, guys. Like, this guy, I checked his record out. He's been fighting for 15 years and has, like, 8 fights. And, I don't know. Just watch Hunsucker here. I mean, he's definitely aggressive. We saw against Vanderera. He's got these wild hooks. He does have some power. You'll see the power in a second here. You got that nice low kick. I just don't like Tai Tuivasa. I think would walk through some of these shots, like that one right there. I don't think it would necessarily rock Tuivasa. Go ahead.
You're playing it right now because we can't see it. We could only.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm an idiot. Sorry. Yeah, my bad.
No, you're good.
I don't know why they. Okay, my bad. Sorry, guys. I had in the wrong screen. Oops. There we go. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
My bad. I had it playing in the other screen. You can see it now. Everything's good. All right. Good. Perfect. Let's watch this fight. It doesn't last long, guys. I'll just say that. And I'm assuming that you've watched it already, AJ, this fight?
Yeah.
And like I was saying, like, look at the guy he's fighting, right? Like, to me, this guy's not UFC caliber. He looks slow plodding. That guy's not in shape either whatsoever. Not that I'm the one to say anything about that, but, I mean, we're trying to dissect these fighters. You can see Harry. He's definitely an aggressive guy. We saw it against Vanderera, too, AJ. He walked forward in the first couple minutes. He actually looked okay at first, but, again, the conditioning let him down in that fight. You can see the power though, guys, and he does have some hands, as you see here. Nice low kick.
Yeah, it's like you're saying, the technique is just so wild and sloppy.
Yeah, it's so sloppy, bro. Look at it's a nice knockout though, guys. Watch this one. It's pretty nice. Like, it's nasty, but the guy stinks. Look at this.
Oh, geez, man.
It was a nice knockout, but that guy's terrible. Like, he didn't even put his hands up. AJ, look at his hands. Watch this guy.
Yeah, his arms are just kind of flailing.
So yes, it was a great knockout. I'm actually really happy for this dude. I watched James's interview with him, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm a big underdog in this fight, guys. I know that it's like the odds are stacked against me, but I'm happy to be in the UFC." and I'm glad he's in the UFC, AJ, but hearing him say that, I was like, this guy's going to lose, man. I got to be honest. So we can watch another one of his fights if you guys want to. Might as well. Harry Hunsucker. I mean, let's watch because what's his name? Kevin was asking about the wrestling. So I think there were some other fights here that kind of show more of his wrestling. Maybe this one. Let's try this one.
It's crazy. Like at the heavyweight division, though, I say his technique is sloppy. You could get by with it, though. I mean, look at Lewis. It's just crazy. Like, I
think this is one where he uses wrestling, actually. Look, you can see he goes right for the clinch, and then he gets him down to single. See, that's what I saw, AJ. He's got a decent single leg, but again, against low-level guys. You know what? The sad thing is it might work against Tai. It could. I just don't know if it's going to work for 15 minutes, or less. Like, this fight is for 3 rounds, guys, and he could fit. Like, he's definitely got some power on the top. He even said in the interview too, he's like, if I get him to the ground, I'll probably finish him. And I kind of agree with that, AJ. I think if he gets the fight to the ground, he will have a path to victory. But I'm just not convinced he's going to be able to stand and bang with Tai, man. Like, Tai Tuivasa has been in there with some real hitters over his career, and for the most part, he's been able to kind of get out of there. What are you seeing here with Hunsucker? Like, obviously, you can see he's got a basic knowledge, definitely, of the ground game, of passing the guard. What are you seeing here?
I mean, like his game is just pretty basic. He's just not really.
Yeah, he's got this hammer lock too, guys. Americana that he likes to do. Go ahead, AJ.
No, I mean that's a nice submission right there. But in terms of like the takedowns, like I agree with you. He could take Tai down, but even if we want to look at the Spivak fight, Spivak had to show good cardio, take him down again and again because Tai kept getting up. I don't trust Hunsucker's cardio, especially on short notice. A guy who hasn't been past the first round ever in pro MMA to take him down as consistently as Spivak did. Even if we want to look at the Blagoy fight, I think that those guys were just better grapplers than Hunsucker. Again, it's possibly takes him down. It's just he needs to, I think, take him finish Tai within those first couple attempts. And I mean, I just think it's kind of unlikely based on what we're seeing right here. Like you said, it's a different story. There are levels to this, as we know. Yeah. I mean, look at Kevin Tucker versus Dan Ige last week. I mean, the tape could say like, well, Tucker over 15 minutes could win. Is Dan too big of a step up? And then we saw in that particular scenario, Dan was too big of a step up. But we don't really know that until we actually see them in there. But my eyes tell me that Tuivasa is just on different level.
I'm sorry, I had to laugh because this guy's just not ready for this fight. This guy right here, like he wasn't prepared. The guy who's fighting. You can tell he's got power, though, no doubt about it. But again, he was struggling to get this dude down, AJ. That freaks me out. Who's this guy, Tony Parker? That's not the San Antonio Spurs point guard, guys. This is some random dude from the regional scene in Kentucky. So, everything's pointing to me, man. Tai Tuivasa is getting this win. I actually like him in this fight a lot. I thought he'd be minus 500. You opened at minus 350, if I'm not mistaken, or 385 or something. Right now, the odds are, let's take a look, 350. Yeah, so it went down a little bit. I'm guessing you're passing on this one. It's hard to lay the juice on the heavyweight kind of fight between two lower level guys, although I'd say Tai is definitely a UFC caliber fighter. Is there anything you're looking at in this fight, AJ, for a betting perspective?
Maybe the under 1.5, but I just can't lay that juice on Tai. I mean, yeah, he probably goes out there and wins. I just don't want to lay juice on a guy that's got so many holes in his game. We were talking about hack press last week. I was comfortable there, but it's just a completely different spot. I got to pick my spots for the value, and so I just feel kind of fine passing.
Yeah, that's fair enough, AJ. I got to be honest, guys. I do like Tai in this fight, but the odds obviously suck. I'll think about it. I'll see tomorrow what I want to do. But I'm looking at this. The fight doesn't go the distance. It's only minus 260. I don't think this fight goes the distance. Do you? I'd rather lay the juice on that personally. What do you think?
It probably doesn't. Yeah, I mean, I guess it would depend on what that under is set at. If there's a bigger value, because there might be more value with the under only because they might both gas. But I could see it going, not going the distance. So I see your take there.
Yeah, let's take these comments. Kevin says, I know you're saying about level of competition. Tai's wrestling is very low level. It is. It's not good. He's been training it, though, so hopefully it's got better. Hunsucker's body type doesn't scream good cardio. No. I don't think it's going to be horrible, but I don't think it'll be great. He definitely looks in better shape, though, from his Instagram and stuff. Not that's going to paint a picture of how the fight goes, but he looks better shape than he was against Bandera, where he gassed out after about 3 minutes, AJ. That was like on 2 days' notice, I think. So, listen, this guy's got a shot in the UFC now. He's probably going to get KO'd, though, guys. From a fantasy perspective, Tai's the guy I'm looking at, too. I got to be honest, AJ. I would assume he's going to be the cash play of the week for most people because he's most likely going to win this fight in the first round by KO. So it's definitely a little bit risky because he is a low-level heavyweight, but I'm thinking Tai in the first round. What do you think, AJ?
Yeah, that would be where I would more than want to get my exposure is on DFS. GPPs, Tai, throw him in there. Like you said, he's got that first-round finish upside. And that's a risk people would be willing to take, right? If it misses, it misses. But it's too good of a spot, I think, to kind of pass up and completely fade. So I'm willing to take that chance.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one too. Again, guys, you got any questions? Throw them in there. We'll take a look at some other fights on the card. I don't want to get into all of them today because I already did it for Marcel, but we'll take a look at a few of them. Now, how about take a look at the main event? I mean, because I know you're on Brunson here, man, and I gotta be honest, like this is a tough one for me to call. I'm leaning towards Holland a little bit. I did read your breakdown yesterday on your Twitter that you posted, so I definitely can see what you're saying. The thing that gives me the hiccup here is if it was a 3-round fight, AJ, I would pick Brunson, but the 5 rounds really worries me. I just don't know if I can trust his cardio in those 4th and 5th rounds, although it's looked great lately, especially against Edmund. I just feel like Holland would have the better cardio in those last couple rounds. Having said that, I don't think I could bet on this fight. So obviously you have maybe a better view of this fight than me because you are placing a wager on it. So give me your thoughts on this matchup. Why did you lay the juice on? Well, you're not laying the juice on Brunson. He's a dog, but why are you making a bet on Derek Brunson?
It's the hype cycle. We've seen it time and time again. These hype fighters get an inflated line because people get excited about knockouts, and I love knockouts too. But there's ways to take advantage of that in the betting line in the right matchup. And look, this bet could miss. It's not a lock, but Brunson I think has the tools to exploit Holland where he's looked most susceptible. We've seen Holland taken down pretty much by everybody that wants him down. Mearshart, Stewart, Allen. They're able to pass his guard, threaten him with submissions. We saw Stewart almost finish him with a ground and pound, and Brunson's been able to out-wrestle Heinisch, Romero, good athletes, good wrestlers. He's been able to take guys down, pass their guard. He's a BJJ brown belt. And in the top position, he'll look for ground and pound. And I just don't trust Holland. Yeah, he's a black belt under Travis Lutter, but like he just hasn't shown me enough urgency on the ground. That's an impressive win that he has over Jacare, but if he's not finishing the guy from Nico Price ground and pound bottom, I think that if Brunson is able to settle in top position, it could be a long night for Holland. I think we could even see Holland tired. I mean, Holland gassed in round 3 against Stewart. Mark Smith was telling him to fight back. I mean, this is a fight. I think it's going to be the tale of two fights here. It's Holland in open space. That's where I think he's going to have his success. He's going to be longer. He's going to be the more technical striker, I think, more varied. But if Brunson is able to get the clinch or in top position, that's where I think Brunson is going to look like a comfortable favorite. And so, I mean, this bet could lose just like any other bet that I place, but this is just a risk that I'm willing to take, and we'll see exactly what happens here. But I like the value on Brunson. Yeah,
I actually capped it basically a pick 'em, AJ. So I don't really see value in Holland at all. That's why I'm not going to play Holland here at minus 175. The opening odds had him at plus 100. I might have considered that because I think it should be minus 110 each. So, to me, it's like it's a pass, but I could at plus 150. I mean, there's definitely some value, I think, on Brunson, just not a spot I want to take AJ personally, because I do have concerns about his cardio and his chin as well a little bit too. So the guy's great though, don't get me wrong. And I think he's won his last 3 fights as an underdog, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, he's been winning fights as a dog. The Theodore fight might have closed the pick, but he's definitely a dog against Heinisch and Shabazian, he was plus 300, I think, against. So that was a great spot if you had him there. Let's get this question here from Stu. Hey, Stu, what's going on? He says, concerned with Delisi coming down middleweight. For me, yes. That's why I'm picking Giles, too. I like Giles a lot, actually. I think he's very underrated. I think he's got a big striking advantage in this fight, man. I got to be honest with you. Don't get me wrong, Delisi's look good, but he's one of these slow, kind of statuesque guys who kind of stands there. And moving down the middleweight, I have a lot of concerns about him. The line's actually shifted even more towards Giles now. It's Delisi opened at minus 150, and now it's minus 125. So some small action coming in on Giles. I don't think it's crazy. I expect the line to kind of stay around this. This is another tough one to call, guys. Like, I'm not too confident either side, but from what I've seen, man, Giles has really made some improvements. And I thought he looked outstanding against Bavon Lewis. The guy was disappointing me for sure, but I was impressed, AJ. And even in his losses to Cummings and Mearshart, he was winning those fights and made mistakes, and he leaves his neck out. And if he leaves it out against Delisi, he could get caught. Delisi's got some submission skill too, mostly heel hooks. But the fact he's moving down to middleweight, man, on short notice really worries me. I'm sure he's been training for this and he's ready to go. He's in Vegas, but I have question marks. What are your thoughts on this? Go ahead, talk.
I do. I am going to be monitoring those weigh-ins because Delisi is a big guy for light heavyweight standards, and moving down, obviously, like. I think I favor him ever so slightly because, like, I agree, like, Giles could best him on the feet by being a bit faster, being a better athlete, but I just don't trust Giles' defensive grappling at all, man. Like that Mearshart fight, I mean, he had Mearshart mounted, and then Mearshart's reversing him, mounting him. The Zach Cummings fight, he gets dropped because he's, basically just wooing at the crowd and being lackadaisical out there. But I agree with you, that Bavon Lewis fight was arguably his best performance in the UFC. I mean, even though he went out there and made quick work of his UFC debutant opponent, but he just fought with a lot more urgency. You could tell it in Giles. Like you could tell that he actually wanted it there. He cared. Whereas before it seemed like, because he's like a police officer on the side of things. So you got to also kind of wonder like how committed he is with another job. But I really liked how he looked against Lewis. So I think it's a close fight. I agree with it being a close fight. I don't want to bet it. I favor Dolidze. I mean, you could use Giles will be faster, but kind of a similar example. We saw Jan Israel. Dolidze is going to be the bigger guy here. So if he does get in top position on Giles, I think he can maybe control him there. He's a good submission grappler, so he can maybe do something with that. But yeah, Dolidze is a guy I don't want to invest in because his output is just so low. Usually, he wrestled with more urgency last time against Giles, but I'd like to see more consistency out of that. So as far as the pick goes, I slightly favor Dolidze, but I don't want anything to do with this as far as a bet.
Yeah, I'm with you completely, man. I just don't think I could touch it. Even from fantasy, it seems tough to me. Like, I guess there'd be a finish in this fight if I had to guess. Would you lean towards a finish in this one?
I would lean towards a finish, yeah.
Yeah, me too. We get some comments here. Kenshiro always says the times. Yeah, I can't do it at 10 a.m., man. I have a full-time job during the day. I can't. It's got to be 4 p.m. This is a good question from Stu. He says, are you guys not buying the Shan buys hype train? I'm not necessarily buying it, but I think this is a good matchup for her personally. I don't think Ruiz is going to be able to take her down. From what we've seen of buys, I think she's got good takedown defense. I think on the feet, she's got the better striking, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what her ceiling is. She looks talented, well-rounded, but she still is really green. She's only 6 pro fights. I mean, yeah, she probably goes out here to win. She looks like a better striker. Has got a more complete game. Ruiz, what I've seen out of her game is just like, I'm going to try and walk you down, get the clinch, and use a head and arm throw. But like that is just not an effective technique usually. I mean, I don't know how good Baze's wrestling is, but she showed me enough in scrambling situations to be positionally aware, smart, hold top position to where she probably could stay out of danger there. So Ruiz just seems pretty one-dimensional, and Baze just seems more well-rounded, but it's not a fight where I don't want to lay any money on Baze. We'll just see how her career develops. Her husband as well. I think they're both really young, so we haven't seen the best of them surely. So just going to wait back and see.
Yeah, again, I like this fight for her. I mean, she is a big favorite for a reason. Ruiz coming on short notice. She does have like some decent submissions with that scarful arm lock, the head and arm throw, but I don't know if it's going to work against Baez. We'll see. It could. I mean, might as well talk about her husband too, JP. What do you think of that fight? Because that's another one that is very tricky to me. JP Baez, whatever you call him. Listen, he's got good submissions. He's got some momentum. He's the younger guy. He's got the reach advantage. I know all that, but I got to be honest, AJ, I wasn't super impressed with this tape, man. Some of these fights he's had are against really low-level guys that cannot stop a takedown. Bruno Silva's wrestling is not terrible. I know he's been taken down a few times in the UFC, but he's proven pretty tough to take down. I think on the feet, he might have an advantage, too. Trains at a great camp. I'm kind of scratching my head at this one. I have not made an official pick yet. I was leaning towards Silva earlier in the week. Then I was leaning towards Baez, and now I'm leaning towards Silva again. What are your thoughts on this one, man?
Well, I could see why you think it's a tough fight to call. I mean, it's tough to tell, like his base just has not fought near the level of opposition as Silva. And then we also have questions on his cardio. We've seen him gas more than once. But skill set wise, I actually think he's a better fighter here. I think he's a better striker. He could operate out of both stances. I think he's got more variety. Silva's got calf kicks, but like that's really all he has. He has like an overhand right. There's not a lot of layers to his striking. Baze, I like his grappling. He could chain wrestle well. He's got a good double leg, and he could transition to the back. And I also like how he like he's like very methodical in top position. He's like, I'm gonna hold you down, use good shoulder pressure. I'm gonna pass your guard, and I'm going to like an anaconda just look for a submission and like without sacrificing position. And I love that about him. Silva, he's a black belt on paper, but like it wasn't that long ago where we saw him submitted by Taha against neck take. I mean, Taha's a phenomenal talent and whatnot, but like from what I've seen out of Baze, like he could do something like that too. He's a threatening submission grappler, especially from like the front headlock position. So it's a tough fight to call. I don't want anything to do with a bet. Baze is a guy where like we could point to cardio issues that he had in the past, but him being only like 24, I wouldn't be shocked to see him maybe address those. I mean, he trains at Fortis MMA, and he looks like a skilled fighter. So I'm not ready to say like, you know, the cardio will for sure hinder him for the rest of his career. There's always reason to believe that these fighters could address that. So as far as the pick goes, I actually side with Baze, but I understand people being higher on Silva, much more UFC tested. His cardio has looked better, better competition. So I understand both sides, but I like Baze a little more.
So I'm assuming you like him from fantasy perspective, right? He's 8,300 at DraftKings. Is that someone that you're targeting?
I do, because like if I'm doing an if-then statement, like if Baze wins, I think there's a decent chance it's by like an early finish. And then on the flip side, if Silva wins, he could, he's an underdog, which is valuable on DraftKings. Maybe he finishes if Baze happens to gas again. So it's a fight I actually think I want both sides of. I think there could be a lot of grappling here, which we see in the new scoring system is definitely more valuable than just purely a striker's battle for 15 minutes, especially one that's like moderate to low tempo. So I actually am pretty interested in this fight from a DFS perspective.
Me too. Let me just show you something here. This is one of his fights against this guy, Gamzat Magomedov. I mentioned this the other day on the podcast. I watched the finish in this fight. Look at this. And then he stopped the fight. So
yeah,
Mark Goddard stopped it via disqualification rate. Like he's hitting him like this guy. That's what I'm saying, AJ. Like I'm really worried about. I know it's been 3 years since this fight, and also the one in Contender Series where he gassed out. But it's been a few years. I just worry that if things don't go his way, he might break. That's what I'm worried about this guy because he seems kind of like a one-trick pony a little bit, man. He seems like kind of a one-round guy to me. Most of his wins are in round one. We'll see. Like maybe he's made that turn in his career. And the thing is, it's not like Silva is this amazing fighter, right? Like he's not incredible. He's 0-2-1, but he really is 0-3 in the UFC. I think they showed the elbow here. It's like Mark Goddard. Is that it? Yeah, and he disqualified him for that. Come on, that really? Like to me, that should be probably a loss of this guy. He ends up getting the win. I don't even know if this guy ever fought again. To me, that's kind of a weird call, man. Like, I guess he was warning him and stuff, but I don't know, AJ. What do you think of this one? Like, did you see this fight? This elbow and stuff? Like,
didn't like a brawl ensue afterwards?
Yeah, they're starting to fight afterwards. It's crazy. Go back and watch this one, guys. It's nuts. But he's pissed at Mark Goddard because he called it a DQ. It's a weird one, but he couldn't continue either. So it is what it is. But that fight and the fight with what's his name, Joby Sanchez on Contender Series, where he gassed out and got finished. But it was a few years ago. So training at Fortis, has he made those leaps and bounds with his cardio? I'm guessing he has, right? So it's a tough one, AJ. I still have another day. I got one more day till I have to submit my MMA Oddsbreaker staff picks. So you guys can wait till tomorrow. I'm going to sleep on this one. There are some other fights though I'm way more confident in. Stu's asking about some underdogs targeting for DFS. I do a podcast on Fridays for EliteFantasy.com, and I'll be doing the whole card. So I don't know if you remember there, Stu. You can tune that in tomorrow. That's where I do my DFS stuff. But as a bonus, I can give you like one play, potentially Leonardo Santos I saw as an underdog. He could win that fight. That's a close fight. I'm not sure what you were thinking on that one, AJ. The Leo Santos Grant Dawson fight. I think I'm leaning toward Dawson a little bit, but Santos was a pretty big underdog at DraftKings. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, it's a fight where like I just don't see like, yeah, I mean, I understand like favoring Dawson. He's younger, more upside. He's been much more active than Santos, but like there isn't anywhere stylistically where he blows Santos out of the water. I mean, Santos is a great submission grappler. He's very credentialed. That seems to be Dawson's strength. I think Dawson is talented. I just don't think he's like, I think he's still improving. I think he's only gonna get better. He's still not like a polished boxer, I'd say. He's got like a low kick, but he just doesn't have a lot of depth to his striking. His head movement could be much improved. We saw that against Rosa. So like, he's a guy like, sure, he probably goes out there and wins, but like, do I want to bet that price on a guy who doesn't have any like clear stylistic advantages? No. Santos he hasn't lost in the UFC. Yep. Like he's a solid defensive wrestler as well. The guy's like not an easy guy to exploit. Like people could say what they want, 41 years old, but what holes does this guy really have in his game other than his output is low, and then he's got some very questionable cardio. But unless if he gasses here, I just struggle to see Dawson really pulling away. Maybe even Santos maybe hurts him or something. He's got a really good counter right hand. So it's a pass. So I think Santos is live. Yeah.
Are you picking Santos? Like, are you considering it at least?
I'm not picking him. I'm picking Dawson. But yeah, it's just like out of age gap.
I guess you agree with me though that he's live on DraftKings at 7,600, I believe Santos was. Like, because you know what? If he wins his fight, guys, he probably does it by stoppage. You know, if you look at his fights, he's so good, eh? Like, he might be one of the most underrated guys in the UFC, especially watching him back, AJ. Like, yeah, he's 41, guys, but he doesn't look like he's 41. He's still fighting at a high level. It's crazy, right? Because he had that long layoff of like 3 years and came back. He's looked outstanding since then too. So I really don't know about this one. I think Grant Dawson's outstanding. It's one of those things. I got to be careful on the hype though, AJ. I'm trying not to buy the hype on him too much because I liked him before when he had his first couple fights in the UFC. And now everyone's like, oh, he trains with James Krause. He's been with him for a while, guys. It's not like that changed anything. I just think the kid's great, but you got to watch the hype. And I think Santos is one of those guys against Kevin Lee, against Stevie Ray, these guys that were younger than him. They were supposed to beat him. AJ went out there and knocked them out. So this one's a sketchy fight, guys. Leonardo Santos is older than my car tire. That's funny. And he says, are you working for stream for workplace? Yes, this is my office. It's kind of like a comic book shop. You guys, there's a bunch of other stuff over there too, but got the UFC toys. Dana White's there and all these guys. Actually, you know what? This comment's hilarious. He says, drama queen Goddard strikes again. Yeah, that stoppage. I don't know about that stoppage, man. It seemed kind of rushed. Let's talk about a few other pieces of news here, actually. There's a lot of news that's happening this week, AJ. I don't know if you saw, but UFC's parent company, Endeavor, they're going to go public. So the UFC might actually be going public. Is that something you'd be interested in potentially buying some shares of?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've been on the ship for however long we've been involved in the sport. I mean, I want to invest in something that I believe in, and we believe in the UFC, right? We've been with it this whole time. It's only going to get better, like we talked about last. I mean, ESPN Plus. I mean, Dana White is out there executing a lot behind the scenes. I mean, I still like. I don't want to ever doubt Dana. I mean, look at, when people thought it was a joke that he was saying like he was doing Fight Island. I mean, look what happened. He went out there and did the damn thing. Yeah. So Dana's only working as hard as he can behind the scenes. It's only going to get better as time goes on. And I mean, he's as committed as they come. So yeah, I believe in it long term, and that'd be something I'd be able to take a shot on. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm thinking like maybe too. I mean, obviously it'd be kind of a conflict of interest maybe, but I'm pretty sure other journalists would be involved too. I have to think about it more, but let's just read the article. They had a comment here. It's Sportico. It said, Endeavor Group Holdings, entertainment conglomerate that owns Ultimate Fighting Championship, talent agencies, IMG, William Morris, and produces content including Premier League soccer and movies like La La Land, also Killing Eve, that TV show. They filed confidential paperwork for initial public offering with the Securities and Exchange Commission. It says that they're racking $3 billion a year in revenue, AJ. So I've heard – I think 2 years ago they were supposed to go public. I was reading about it when I was doing the research for that article, and the shares were about, I think, $27 to $30 a share. So that's interesting. I think that'd be priced about where I'd like to jump in there too. So I got to be honest, I'm interested. I am a journalist covering the sports. So I got to be careful from like a sort of ethical standpoint. But you think I'm the only journalist or fan of the sport that's going to be interested? No, I think everyone's going to be in on this, AJ, because I'm with you, man. Like the UFC is just going to go up from here, guys. Like it's just going up, Even this last year, AJ, like you said, everyone's like, this is it for the UFC with coronavirus. They're done. That's it. And Dana White, got to give him credit, man. As much as I criticize Dana, I love criticizing him because he screws up a lot. But the guy, listen, man, he's the most important guy in the business. And I owe him a lot, dude, because I have a job in this industry because he created a sport or helped make a sport popular that I love. So get some comments here. Andre says, who's your pick, Adam? I got Brunson all day. I am leaning towards Holland, although I completely agree with everything AJ said. AJ knows what he's talking about too. So it's a tough fight to call, guys. Honestly, I looked at it as like basically a pick 'em fight, and right now you have Holland as too big of a favorite. I can't touch him. I loved him in the last fight against Jacare, though, guys. I think it was a dog or maybe like a pick 'em price. Loved him there. Stu says, weird coincidence. Pretty sure Goddard's early stoppage on buys. Oh my God, I didn't think about that. Yeah, I don't know about conspiracy, but he was the ref for the fight with the guy. That was a terrible stoppage. Like, I mean, is that even a win? Like, what do you think? The last fight.
It was weird. I have a hard time drawing the line in the sand with that because like supposedly like they saw his like legs give out or something. Like there was some kind of like indication where Goddard actually like justified like why he broke it up. And it's one of those things I don't want to pretend like I for sure know exactly what happened because Goddard at the end of the day he's in there and like yeah we seem to have a good view from where we're watching it, but we're still not in the octagon, so maybe he just saw something that we didn't. So I always give the referees the benefit of the doubt. That might be a contrarian take, but that's just something that I'm willing to do. So yeah, conspiracy. I'm not ready to say that. But in terms of like, that happened, Goddard was the referee for that fight and that one that you previously showed. That is interesting that happened.
Yep. And this case you're talking about Dawson. Yeah, I mean, like I think there's hype on him now though, because a lot of the time before this fight, people were just I don't think they thought of him as like a superstar prospect. And now they are. People were like, Grant Dawson's going to be a future champ because James Krause is saying that. So I think that's where the hype's coming from his camp. I think he's great, though. Don't get me wrong. I am picking him to win this fight. Dojo, he's saying Macy Chason. Oh, don't use that word. Don't you dare use that word, man. That's someone I like, too. I like Macy, too, though. I like her in that fight. Actually, I posted this stat yesterday. Do you realize Marion Renault is the oldest fighter in the UFC? Did you realize that, AJ?
I did not until just now.
AJ, Marion Renault is the oldest fighter in the UFC by 5 days on Alexei Oleinik. They're both born in 1977. Oleinik's 5 days younger than her. And we look at Oleinik and we're like, damn, this guy's old, needs to retire, right? And he gets KO'd every fight. Renault is still fighting at a decently competitive level. I don't know about that matchup for him. I'm kind of with Kenshiro, even though I hate the way you use that word, Kenshiro, because that word, man, that doesn't exist in my vocabulary anymore. I've seen too much crazy shit, guys. I've seen last-second knockouts, last-second submissions, bad judges' decisions, disqualifications, legal shots, everything, AJ. I've seen it all. So that word does not exist in my vocabulary. And I told you to get rid of it too, AJ. I think you took my advice on that one. Yeah. Thank you. I like that. Yo, this guy likes Brunson. Andre likes Brunson. There we go. There's your boy. Andre likes Brunson. I'm going to take out this right here for the news. Junior Santos files appeal. What do you think of that? Is that back of the head or no?
Well, the thing with that controversy was, and I recall during the fight, Dos Santos shouldn't have been turning, and he was turning. So, like, you could argue that was to the back of the head, but at the same time, the counterpoint to that would be he shouldn't have been turning his back. And so, I mean, look, I wish Dos Santos all the best. He's given a lot to the sport. It's pretty crazy to just see, him get released along with Overeem. I wish him all the best. I mean, if you're asking me, I don't think it'll go through. I mean, I don't think it'll be approved, but I mean, I do understand where he's coming from. It's disappointing that it had to go down specifically like that, but I think that based off the optics of what happened, I think it's probably going to get not approved.
Kenshiro says, looks illegal. That right there looks illegal. I mean, no doubt about it, but AJ's right. He turned into it, right? And that's the tough part because these guys are moving at such a fast speed that like brief second where he turns, that was the difference, I think. He would have lost that fight either way, right? That's what I'm thinking about. But I got to be honest, man. I feel bad for this guy because if you read what he was saying, I think to Ariel yesterday, he was on Ariel's show, AJ, he said that the UFC called him, like, I think a month before that fight was like, can you fight Ciryl Gane at UFC 256? He was like, can you give me another month? Can we fight in January? They're like, no, you either fight him in December, you get cut. That's what they told him, right? So he's like, all right, I'll take the fight. Took the fight, lost the fight. 2 months later, got cut. Now he's super pissed at the UFC. He's really angry at Dana White. That's like throwing a legend in the trash, though, bro, the way they treated him. I mean, listen, I'm not saying he's a high-quality fighter anymore, but he still was ranked in the top 15. And to me, Dana White saying this is performance-related, I think it's more money-related, AJ. Same with Overeem. I believe it's more what's the ROI on these guys, right? Because they're getting paid in the six figures. Is it worth keeping them around? Or is it better to go find a guy like Chris Dawkins who they can pay $20,000 and basically get the same result with a knockout? That's what I'm thinking here is, AJ. I don't think it's really performance. I think it's more financially centered. What do you think?
You're 100% on the money. They're getting rid of these guys because they're too expensive in the salary. We heard Dana White say that they were going to make some cuts. I mean, we saw them make a lot of cuts at the end of 2020, but Dana says this isn't it. We're going to be cutting more people. And I did have some concerns about Overeem even in the Sakai matchup. It had me thinking with them cutting Jacare, other big names in the sport. Like if a guy like Overeem lost that matchup against an uppercomer in Sakai, he would have got cut. Then we saw the following fight. He loses to Volkov, then he gets cut. So they're cutting these guys where they're looking at it, I think, from a longevity perspective, where, Dos Santos and Overeem, they're going to be legends of the sport, no doubt about it. They'll go down as the Hall of Fame. But they're looking at it right now and going, like, what is the potential in these guys right now at their point in their careers? They're basically guys that they're going to give to prospects to see how well they test them. And they're coming off losses here. I mean, like their resume speaks for itself. They're not getting cut because they're straight up bad fighters or anything. It's just, it's a salary thing. It's a potential thing. So again, whether people disagree or agree with it, I'm just saying why I'm trying to justify why I think the UFC is doing it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. Listen, they knew that they were going to make some tough cuts, guys. We knew this. Like they said, we're cutting 60 guys. They weren't just going to be UFC newcomers. There was going to be some veterans. We saw that Anderson Silva, Yoel Romero. Now you're seeing with these guys, with Overeem and JDS. And I mean, quite frankly, that's probably the tip of the iceberg, guys. I mean, you're probably going to see some other older veteran guys get cut. You mentioned, I think you say Jacare. I think you mentioned the potential cut. Like that's a guy right there. He makes a lot of money. Great fighter. He used to be a great fighter. Is he anymore? I'm not sure. And if you're the UFC, you're looking at it from an ROI perspective, guys. Overeem gets paid. That's the other thing. Overeem is making close to $1 million, I believe. Win or lose. Just the show, AJ. And let's be fair to him. He always showed up. He always showed up, and he put on good fights. He did get finished brutally in the last fight, and everyone's like, "Oh, Dana White's trying to save his brain." Come on, guys. They're trying to save their money. They're trying to save over his brain. If they were trying to save his brain, they wouldn't have a sport in the first place. Let's look at some fight announcements, AJ. Just pull up Marcel's page. Big Marcel. He's not here today, but let's pull his page out. Give the old big guy some love. All right. There's some good fights coming up, guys. We're going to get into them briefly here. Start with this one. This is coming up soon. It's a great fight. Love this fight, AJ. Well, June 26th, actually 3 months away, but holy shit, what a fight, eh? Like, I love this matchup. I love it. I got to be honest, man. I didn't see it. I don't know if you were on. I know your name's Anthony too, right? So I'm guessing you probably took him at plus 400 against Rodolfo Vieira. But I got to be honest, man. That was one of those ones where I was jumping up, down, screaming. You know, I got it wrong, AJ. It was just nice to see when one of those crazy upsets happen. You got it, like the way it happened. He chokes him out, impressive, and then Puna Heli. I mean, this guy it's a monster. We saw the knockout in his last thing against Dusko, and he's also had a few other knockouts. So, what do you think of this matchup? Don't give me a pick or anything, but what's your stylistic initial breakdown on this fight?
Oh, these two are just going to stand and bang and just throw bombs at each other. I think Soriano's going to be packing the bigger punch. The guy's got a tremendous amount of power in his hands. He's not the most technical fighter, but he's one of those Hawaiian fighters that's super tough, aggressive, athletic background, wrestling background, and will throw the hardest shots at you. We saw that in the last fight against Tudorovic. Like he exploited Tudorovic's susceptible striking defense, hands down, chin up, and he paid for it. I mean, you take one clean shot from Soriano, and this guy will get. He's got like 4 knockdowns in 2 UFC fights. It's crazy the amount of power this guy has. I say Hernandez is a guy who doesn't pack as much power, but he's more aggressive. He'll get you against the fence. He'll walk you down, throw high volume. I think Hernandez will try to look to get Soriano down, be unsuccessful early. But I think Hernandez actually has a cardio advantage here. So I think it's a tale of early versus late. I favor Soriano early, but as the fight goes on, that's where Hernandez can have his advantage. But it's going to be a great fight. I mean, they're going to go out there. I mean, assuming they both stay conscious, it could be a fight of the night potential, I think.
Yeah, but Daniel says after he slept, Darko has my money, and that was impressive. I think you were talking about Darko's like defensive deficiencies going into that fight, with just keeping his hands low and stuff, and you saw him get clocked. That was brutal, man. That reminded me of the fight the other day between Angela Hill and Ashley Yoder. I don't know, my tweet made it on TV. I was like, this girl's chin is right in the air. She needs to be more defensive. Like she was like this age, like just hit me in the chin. It's just amazing the fighters at this level still do that. Like they can't tuck their chin, block their face. It's crazy. Kenshiro's got a parlay here. He does these big parlays, which I don't really do, but I know they do hit for him. So he's taking Holland, Gregor, Ty, Yanez, Shason, and Dawson. Careful on Dawson, man, but the others should win, I think. And these guys like Avila too, yeah. Let's go to some other fights here. This one, don't want to talk about too much, but this girl's Procopio is not bad. She beat Molly McCann. I liked her. There's a dog, and she takes on O'Neal, who's coming off a great win over Shayna Dobson. I'm assuming O'Neal's probably going to be favored in this fight after that win. I mean, she looked outstanding. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they both excel as grapplers, but we see this time and time again. We're 2 fighters excel as grapplers. We might get a strikers battle. I mean, I hope we get to see some jiu-jitsu on the ground, but it is a good booking. I mean, they're both coming off good wins. Procopio, she was like the consensus underdog of the week when she beat McCann. It was just hilarious to see that all over Twitter. And then O'Neal, big win over Dobson in her UFC debut, showcased some excellent grappling. I remember she broke the DFS slate for everybody that was on her. Both two young ladies that excel as grapplers should be fun. Yep.
Go to the next one here. Karol Rosa's Jar Eubanks. I mean, somewhat similar. Like it's striker versus grappler, right? I like Karol Rosa, man. I'm very high on this girl. I think she could be top 10 fighter soon. What do you think of her?
Yeah, she's I'm impressed with her. I wrote her up as one of my prospects to watch for MMAOB. She's got better cardio here, and I think that's a big difference with Sarge. Like I think Sarge is like a talented fighter, but she's only got so much cardio for 15 minutes, and so that's why it's tough to trust her over 15. But they're both well rounded. I'd say should be a fun scrap. They both. I'm so impressed with Rosa's like output on the feet. She just volume. UFCstats.com. People could check that out. She throws at such a high pace and she wrestles. So she's not like the most technical fighter, the most defensively sound fighter, but she's got great cardio and a high pace, which is a lot to deal with. So
I agree. And Eubanks, I mean, listen, she really surprised me against Avila. I didn't expect her to win that fight. I got to be honest. That one surprised me, but I don't know. Karol Rosa is someone I'm even higher on Rosa than Avila because look how young Rosa is. She's born in 94, so she's 26 or 26 right now. So, I mean, she's super young, man.
Yeah.
This fight's pretty good, too. Bill Algeo. He had a really close fight against Ricardo Lamas, and he lost the fight, but it was like a good showing by him. Ramos is a guy. He got knocked out in his last fight, I think, by Leron Murphy. I love Murphy. There's an underdog. He knocked him out. What are you thinking of this one?
Yeah, I'm pretty perplexed by a couple fights with Ramos, just like the way they went down. Not that he lost to bad fighters or anything.
This one right here, eh? This is a hobby.
Yeah, like it was just like there's so many like weird fights, like or weird moments in fights that end up costing him. Yeah, he got the spinning elbow there, but then like Murphy like knocks him out cold with like ground and pound, and then Nurmagomedov knocks him out or hits him with a body shot and finishes him there. Like they're both like Aljo's like really scrappy and tough. And so he might be able to outlast Ramos, but I think Ramos is the better technical fighter when he wants to be. So I think it's one of those fights. It's like, yeah, Ramos is probably the better fighter on paper, but it's just like, does he show up? I mean, there's been a couple of times where he hasn't. And so that's what makes it so intriguing stylistically, because Aljo will put it on him if he doesn't show up at his best, I think. So that's a fun fight, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I forgot, I think he did beat Spike Carlisle in his last fight. And Spike Carlisle, if I'm not mistaken, is fighting LFA next. So he just got a fight booked. He's a guy that probably shouldn't have been cut, by the way. I think he should have got another fight. Now, this is a fight that you messaged me, or I saw you tweet about, and then you told me, like, let's talk about this one. This is an outstanding fight. This Mason Jones guy, in my opinion, was I think he beat Mike Davis in his last fight. I personally scored the fight for him, and I don't know what you thought about that fight, AJ, but I thought he won that fight. Alan Patrick's a guy who's had some success in the UFC, but to me, he's a guy who's a little bit older now. He's he's 37 now. I mean, another one of these ageless Brazilians, though. He doesn't look like he's 37, but I mean, Mason Jones to me is an outstanding young fighter, and he's very young, 25 years old. I would imagine Mason Jones will be favored in this fight, guys. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think Jones, despite getting a loss there, and that's why I don't like to put a whole lot of stock into wins and losses. I want to look at the whole journey of the fight. He looked great against Davis, I thought, and I rate Davis highly. I think Davis is one of the better prospects at lightweight, and the fact that, regardless of who you scored it for, he went out there, he fought at a high pace, he showed great durability. The thing that concerns me the most about Jones, and it's part of the reason why I bet Davis there, is he doesn't have the best defense in terms of like his head movement. But he is super tough. If he could fix up that striking defense, I think this guy could go far. I mean, he's already proven to be obviously Cage Warriors double champ. He's very credentialed, excuse me. So I like him, and I do think he'll be favored. Might not get a decent line on him, but this is a spot where, I know the fighters both fairly well. Patrick just really struggles if he can't take you down and hold you down, and he's not the best wrestler. So, and I did think that Jones's defensive wrestling and get-ups looked a lot better against Davis than he showed on the regional scene. So that tells me that Jones is improving. He's super young too, so he's only going to get better. Whereas you said Patrick is 37, so we've kind of seen the best of him. So I really like Jones in the spot, and I'm high on him in general.
Yeah, and he had his win with this guy, Donovan Desme, who's fighting for the Cage Warriors title this weekend. We can talk about Cage Warriors in a second here. We might have a few more minutes to do it. Let's go through some more fights quickly. We already talked about that fight. This fight has been rebooked, and you guys know I have a lean in that fight. Now, we got to talk about this one here. The line's actually out, open at minus 275 for Robert Whittaker and plus 220 for Kelvin Gastelum. Now, I know he's taking a short notice, but to me, I think this is a pretty competitive fight. I'll be honest with you. I mean, Whittaker should be favored in this fight. He's proven himself as one of the second best middleweight in the world, right? So he should be favored here. But stylistically, I don't think it's a terrible matchup for Kelvin Gastelum. What are you thinking here, AJ?
No, it's not a terrible fight for Gastelum. My first ever bet that I placed was on Gastelum in the first iteration of this matchup, and it was at a similar line. The odds are ridiculous here. I mean, it's just like, yeah, I mean, even if you favor Whittaker, like almost 3-1 or whatever it is, like it's just that's way too wide. It's going to be a stand-up battle. Yeah, like the argument could be made that Whittaker's the better striker. He's more varied. But Gastelum, arguably more durable. He's got power. So it adds, it's going to be a higher variance striking fight. It's not like Whittaker is so much better of a striker than him. It's a fight where I have to dig more into tape because again, when I placed it on Gastelum, I was a total newbie at this thing. So pretty much just throw that out the window. But I still do think that the odds, to me, it speaks recency bias. You could look at Gastelum. He's lost 3 fights recently, but there's nothing stylistically that tells me Whittaker should be this big of a favorite over him, So
yeah, I've always been a fan of Kelvin Gastelum, man. I was one of the few people who took him in the fight against Uriah Hall. He was plus 300, AJ. When he fought him in the Ultimate Fighter finale, he was plus 300. Loved him in that spot, man. I made some good money on that night. And he's been good over the years, man, but a little inconsistent at times. Robert Whittaker, more consistent guy. I agree with the odds that he should be favored, but it does look a little long to me, man. I got to be honest. I thought it'd be closer to like 2-1, not 3-1. So to me, like there's that margin there where like there's no play here in Raw. But again, this fight's what, a month out. We got tons of time to look at tape, AJ. So we'll come back and talk about that in a month from now. Got this comment. Kenshiro says Gastelum couldn't even run Whittaker on tough. That was a long time ago. Like it was 3 years ago. AJ was even really an MMA guy back then. Daniel Edwards says Whittaker has impressed me the last two performances. He's looked outstanding. I mean, he really has. Although, to be fair, I mean, Jared Cannonier rocked him really bad in that third round, if I'm remembering correctly. And it was kind of a sketchy, like he won the fight, but man, it was scary. And I had Robert Whittaker in that fight. He was an underdog, couldn't believe it. So remember that. He was an underdog in that fight, AJ, and against Darren Till, if I'm not mistaken. Now he's a big favorite. That always worries me when that happens, when like a guy's being undervalued and all of a sudden he's a huge favorite the next fight. That's the kind of thing that worries me a little bit.
The momentum against the betting lines.
Momentum too. I mean, momentum's huge in the sport too, though. It really is. But I agree with you completely. It does. Saying, what do you guys think about the new John Jones videos? Yeah, I mean, I can't wait for him. Like, I bet on John Jones every single fight of his career, including the fight against Matt Hamill. But every fight, and the guy's a winner, right? So yeah, even moving up to heavyweight, AJ, like I'm very high on him, even at heavyweight. Where have you seen his photos? Have you seen the videos? What are your thoughts on John moving up, putting some bulk on and putting some size on?
Yeah, I saw him hitting pads at Jackson Wink. There was a video that escalated there. Like we talked about last week, I mean, I think this could be a new challenge for Jones where we see the best of him come out. So I'm with you. I think he's probably the most skilled heavyweight. Of course, he could lose just because these guys hit so hard and it just adds an extra layer of variance. But yeah, I think he could beat Stipe. I think he could beat Curtis Blades. I think he could beat Francis as long as he doesn't get knocked out. And that's a big if, but I'm with you. I'm high on him at heavyweight for sure. He's probably the most skilled. I mean, he was the most skilled fighter at light heavyweight. And I think by heavyweight standards, could potentially be even wider skill discrepancy there. So. Yep,
I agree. And there's just a few other fights. We'll just quickly go through them. This guy, Rodrigo Vargas. Marcel actually broke that fight himself. Usman Masvidal. Might as well talk about this card really briefly because I know Kenshiro was asking about it. And then this fight's great too. Marcel broke that fight. Duwato Evlov, love that fight. But let's talk quickly about 261. We got a few minutes. We got 5 minutes left. So this is what I said the other day. Basically, like, I don't think Masvidal deserves the title shot, obviously. I mean, he's coming off a loss, right? But here's the thing, AJ. Like, you got to understand, this card is happening next month. We weren't even expecting those guys to fight until September. So to me, it's like a bonus almost. Like, I wasn't expecting a welterweight title fight until September myself. So this is like a bonus next month because I thought that card was just going to be the two women's fights. And I was going to watch that. Now you get this fight added. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm the first guy who was like pissed off when I think Miesha Tate got a title shot coming off 2 losses and Chael Sonnen did off 2 losses. But to me, like, yeah, even though you could find someone probably more deserving, obviously, in the division, I don't hate the fight, especially because this card is not necessarily for hardcore fans. It's more for the UFC selling tickets in Florida and Jacksonville. They have a full crowd for this event. And it's for selling pay-per-views, AJ. It's a casual fans fight. When I told my fiance that they're rematching, she was so happy. She's a huge Masvidal fan. She can't wait to see. She's like, oh, I can't wait to see him on a full camp and he doesn't have to cut weight in a week. And I was like, yeah, so like that's what the card's aimed for, guys. You got to remember that. I think it should have been Colby. I think it should have been Leon, but that's not what's happening, and I'm not going to get all upset about it like some people have. So what are your thoughts, man? What do you think about this?
I think hit the nail on the head. I think it's a marketing strategy. Yeah, they want to give the best card possible back with a full crowd, just like we saw them put the best card possible back when we had sports back in May. And it's no different here. That's what we love about Dana White. I mean, yeah, he fails a bunch of times, but that's part of the reason why I think he's so successful. He put this card together, and yeah, people could nitpick at the matchup and say, "Oh, it should have been Colby, it should have been Leon, whatever." This draws the most crowd. Everybody knows who Masvidal is by now. I mean, everybody knows who Usman is because Usman's the guy that beat Masvidal. It's just like when Nate Diaz beat Conor McGregor. So he's always going to have that draw. And then, like you said, it's a bonus to have those other fights. Zhang, people are very high on her. Rose, people love Rose. I mean, there's other fights there as well. I mean, it's just Andrade and Shevchenko, right? So, and then you can have an abundance of good matchups there. So, yeah, it's going to be a card that's going to draw a lot of not hardcore fans, obviously, but then also the casual fans as well. I think it's really smart of the UFC to do it, to be honest.
Again, it's for casual fans. Hey, no worries, Stu. Thanks for coming in, man. Got 5 minutes left here, AJ. Let's just go to MMAOddsbreaker.com and take a look at the site. I put up some opening odds. I'm assuming you've been super busy like me and you really haven't had like too much of a chance to caption these fights, but I have gone through the Cage Warriors card and there's a couple. They actually have 3 cards this weekend, guys. Here's 122, Sherrier, who's a very good fighter against Vucenic. Great fight. So that's a good one. Then you got LFA as well, AJ, this weekend. Another great card. Elijah Johns, Bruno Silva in the main event there. And also the other cage where, I mean, look, we've got 3 cards coming up. There's the Derek Brunson fight at Holland. So it's actually a pretty busy weekend. Do you have any content up here? I'm looking for your stuff. Did you run anything lately? Don't see anything from you.
It might get posted later on. Just my usual bets and whatnot. I did a breakdown video with MMA Lock of the Night that might get posted later. But yeah. As far as articles go, just be my bets.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you looked into those cards at all? I mean, like, I'm assuming you've been super busy capping UFC anyways, but have you looked into Cage Warriors, LFA, or even KSWs this weekend as well?
For whatever reason, those organizations don't interest me as much. I like Bellator and UFC the most. UFC's #1. Just for whatever reason, maybe it tickles my fancy down the line. But for right now, it's. I mean, if it's on, I happen to catch it. I'll watch a little bit of it. It's just not something that I'm all too interested in. So I do like.
Totally understandable. Yeah. I mean, there's so much we watch every weekend, right? So it's hard. Like there's always a lot of stuff. Here's what Ken Shuri says. Expect to lose them on. That's the thing. I mean, a lot of these guys, like, they're inexperienced, green, but there's a lot of veterans too. I'll give you an example. Here's one line I do like. I'll give you an example, guys. On KSW, Darko Stocic, who's a former UFC fighter, is fighting KSW this weekend. He's making his KSW debut on Saturday. Okay, he's fighting this guy, Michael Walderek. It's a heavyweight. So Darko fought 3 times in the UFC. He lost his 3 fights. AJ, I don't know if you remember him. He fought Jamal Hill. He fought Kennedy Nchekwu, and he fought 4 times, sorry. Because he won his first fight against this guy named Jeremy Kimball and finished him. Then he lost to Devin Clark, Nchekwu, and Jamal Hill. But the Nchekwu fight, he was winning that fight, guys, and got 2 points deducted with a minute left in the 3rd round for a low blow. So he would have won that fight otherwise. He was released after he lost to Jamal Hill. He lost to 3 top 15 guys by decision, arguably. So to me, it's like, this guy at -160 against this guy at Walderak, who I watched his tape just to see what he looked like. He's a 1-round guy, AJ. He's got huge power. He's a big slugger. He's got a lot of muscle. If Darko doesn't get KO'd in the first minute or 2, he will win this fight. He's only -160, guys. That's a bet I like. Sorry, he's -150. He's even better. That's a bet I'd like. So I haven't had a chance to go through all those fights, AJ, but keep your eye on that guy this weekend. If I'm wrong, I'll call myself out next week, but I see some value in that guy, Darko Stocic, -150. You got all the experience. He's fighting this guy who's a lot older than AJ, a guy who, again, has about 1 round of cardio. I believe this guy is the more effective striker. He'll win this fight. Okay, Shiro says, sorry, yeah, you like it, eh? Yeah. Take a look at it. Just take a look at that one, because it is a former UFC fighter. I'll be honest, some of these guys I've never heard of on this card, but that was one guy that I was like, oh, I know who this guy is. And I didn't hate him in the UFC. I thought he was a decent fighter. So that's a guy to keep your eye on. Bellator's great. Love those +400, 600 dogs. Yeah. Anytime you get bet against Aaron Pico, and that's a guy you love to bet against. And Daniel says something about LFA. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, there's definitely some guys in LFA, if you watch it, like, for instance, Yanez was there and all these guys, like, and if you were betting on them when they were there, you were making probably good bank. But now they're gone. There's these new guys coming up that are 1-0 or 2-0 AJ. It's very hard to bet on them unless you have some inside knowledge on some of these guys. But there are a lot of veterans too, like Spike Carlisle is fighting in a few weeks. That's a fight we can bet on probably because we do have a lot of knowledge about him. Anyways, we got 2 minutes left. I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about, AJ? Anything you want to plug, man? Floor is yours.
I mean, yeah, I think we crushed it, man. I have a few bets posted for the event, like you said. If people want to see my breakdowns for that, they can subscribe to the mailing list on my website. I got a bet on 4 different fighters on this card, so you can find out what my reasoning is why, rather than getting on a video, as I find it's a lot more easy and transparent to do it via written. But yeah, that's there. Always good to chop it up with you. Awesome doing this, and yeah, good luck on the event, everybody.
Yeah, you too, AJ, and good luck to everyone else as well. You guys can follow me on Twitter at MMAOB, obviously. Busy these days, guys, as you guys know. MMAOddsbreaker.com is always going to be my home, but BJPenn.com is the home as well. And then Elite Fantasy, I'll be doing the podcast tomorrow with Duke. I believe it's 7 p.m. tomorrow. That's where I give my bets out. That's where I give all my DFS plays. They are paying me well to do that stuff. I give you guys as much as I can on here. I can't give out the bets because that's just part of what it is. So, if you're a part of that, the Elite team, you can hear them tomorrow. Hopefully we win some money this weekend. There's a couple fights I do have my eye on. I haven't made any bets yet, AJ. I'm going to wait till tomorrow, but there's some fights I do like on this card, including some of the ones we did talk about today. So once again, guys, thanks for everyone who joined in, and I'll be back on Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Still getting used to the afternoons, guys. Appreciate you sticking with me and through the time change. and we'll be back on Monday. AJ, have a great weekend, man. Guys, enjoy the fights, and talk to you soon.